Okay, yep. And so what now, I'm going to talk a little bit, we've got a little time. I'm going to talk about some of the tools that you've been seeing me use, because that's something when people are making drawings. If I'm teaching a class, I try to maybe come with some of these supplies, because it's helpful to have some of the right supplies when you're trying to make the best possible drawing, especially if you're drawing, you know, with portraits. So here, what I've got first here is, whoops, I didn't plug it in. Hold on one second. This is a light box, what you've got, what you see underneath here. And when I go like that, it has 3 different settings. So you can see your drawing very nicely. So here, if theirs is off, oh, I'm gonna get you some fresh tracing paper too. So hold on one sec. Okay, so there's the tracing paper. Now we have a lot of light going on in this room, so it actually looks pretty good behind it. And this is tracing vellum. So let me just show you here. See, it's got translucent vellum. It's made for an inkjet printer, but it's really nice to see through. Better than a lot of the regular tracing paper that you're gonna get. And I can turn my light box on 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, which is totally washed out on the camera, but you get the idea. It's nice in a darkened room. Okay, then if you are gonna do something like this, I would recommend bulldog clips or tape. The clips work really nice, and you want to make sure you anchor your tracing paper onto your printout, because you want it to be in the same place every time you trace every time you go to draw on it, of course. Otherwise, you end up with the features being in the wrong place, and that's when you can use the templates to analyze them. So that often happens, believe it or not. You know, people, everything is kind of skewed, and it's because their paper has moved as they were trying to trace it. Okay, so now I can see very nicely. Let's turn it on 1 step there. Okay, so what I do is I draw with a mechanical pencil, and I like the mechanical pencil because if I get it wrong, I can erase it. And I used to think any mechanical pencil is good, but this one I really, really like. It's Papermate Sharp Writer, number 2. And it makes a really nice line, especially on this vellum. It's just such a pretty thing. It's so nice to use, and you can just kind of trace your shadows and, you know, get the eyes in here. I'm trying to figure out what side you can see it better. Let's get that one back in. There's a little shadow there. Draw the eye, get in the lower, the lower lid. I'm doing this sideways and kind of awkwardly. So anyway, I'm trying to do the best I can here, but you get the idea. So there I got, you know, messed up on the lip, so I can just erase that really nicely. You can get yourself an eraser, bigger eraser too, but this is a good eraser on this thing. Okay, so now, there we go. I got part of Sam being drawn. Lift it up every so often, see how, if you're on track. And then the last thing I wanted to show you is a proportion scale. This is mine, all my beat up, kind of ragged looking proportion scale, but this has been traveling with me since I was in college, which was a long time ago. Okay, so now this is a proportion scale. So once you have your drawing, so let's now flip over to my little boy there. Oh, I'm gonna turn this off. There we go. All right, so there he is. And let's say I want this drawing that I've made from my 8.5 by 11 piece of paper from my printout. And what I do is recommend that you don't go much bigger than this, because usually we're working from photographs that, you know, we've taken with just a regular old camera, and you make them too big, everything just falls apart. It just gets blurry. But usually at this size, you still can see details, but it's not so small that you can't draw those details. So you're going to get a nice pencil line. Do a pencil, don't do a Sharpie. Sharpies kind of blur a little bit, and you can't erase them. You know, you're kind of stuck with what you've done. And whatever you do, don't do a Sharpie over your tracing, over your printout, because then you've just obscured everything too. And if you make a mistake, you can't go back. You have to, well, you can just get another printout, but it's not always easy to do. So here now, I'm going to say that I want to make his face the size of this 8.5 by 11 paper. So I'm taking it from, and I want it, you know, instead of being this big, I want it to be this big, which is often what I say is the minimum size for a face. Make it this big, and then the eyes won't be too small to work with. See, they're already pretty small, but at least they won't be that small. So what I'm going to do is take my ruler and I'm going to measure something. In this case, it doesn't really matter what you measure. It just has to be consistent to you have to measure the same thing. Okay, so I have to measure top of head to chin here, and then say that I want to do top of head to chin on my paper. So that, let's say I'm going to do 10.5 to the top of the paper to the bottom. It's 10.5 inches. This one here is 7 inches. So I want to go 7 inches to 10.5 inches. And some of you may already have done that in your head, but I can't. And then also there's an app for it, and Tom has a way of multiplying things, but this is much easier. So just so I remember, I am doing, see, I've already forgotten, 7 to 10.5. So I write it someplace. So now when you look at the proportion scale, there you go. I think you can see it pretty well. It says size of original on the center circle. And here it says reproduction size on the big circle behind it. So I am going to find 7 on the inner circle, which is right there on the top, right there. And I'm going to find 10.5 on the one underneath. So there's the 7 lined up to 10.5. Can you see that? Oops, go this way. There we go. 7 to 10.5. And I look over here and it tells me percentage of original size. And I want to go to 150%. Yeah, probably could do that in head. Okay, so 150%. And this is really handy when you have something that's not as, you know, straightforward to figure out. But that's what this is. That's a proportion scale. It's kind of an old-fashioned way of doing things, but some of us like to do that. So there's a little side note for you.